Welcome to Intuitive Real Talk, the podcast where I am going to cut through all the BS. I'm going to light a fire under your spiritual ass, and I'm going to remind you your intuition isn't weird, it is your superpower. Hi, I'm Stephanie, a psychic medium, intuitive coach, animal communicator, paranormal expert. Yep, all the things intuitive. I'm also a professional truth dropper. So, what are we going to do here? We're going to dive into it all. Shadow work, spirit talk, intuitive gifts, and yep, even aliens, like a spiritual dumpster dive, but with purpose. There's going to be no gatekeeping, no fluff, no performative love and light bullshit, just raw, unfiltered conversations for people who know they came here to shake shit up. Let's get into it. Hi there. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Intuitive Real Talk. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about what it means to be psychic and what a psychic is. So I am a psychic medium. And so the psychic part is I can see past, present, and future. And why and how can I do that? Well, I am attuned to the energy of the timelines of people, places, animals, things like that. And so to be psychic, it just means that you're really highly attuned to the energy of not only timelines, but patterns, things like that. And so that's why everyone is intuitive. Everyone is a psychic because we are all energy. Everything is energy. And so that's why when someone says, I felt it in my gut or I just knew it, it was because they were energetically connecting in to some sort of shift. Everyone has the ability. It just depends on how strongly connected into that sense that you are. Because some individuals may have a really good throat chakra where they can sing beautifully, and then some may not be able to sing very well. And it is the same with the psychic abilities. It just depends on how much you are in tune with the psychic part. Now, when I said about timelines, the thing with being a psychic is there are past, present, and future timelines all running at the same time of your current life that you're living. But there are also timelines of past lives that you've lived, as well as timelines of the lineage that you were either born into, or that you're married into, or that you were adopted into. And so you have all of these timelines and energies and things that are going at the same time. And that's why an intuitive may pick up something that almost doesn't make sense to you, but you can recognize the energy. It's almost like I've had people say to me, because I'll say, my gosh, it feels like you lost a child. And they'll be like, nope, never been pregnant, never lost a child, never, never, never. But you're not the first intuitive to tell me that. That means if you haven't in this timeline, it means you did in a past timeline, or that many individuals in your lineage have lost babies. And so you're carrying their energy. I know it's very confusing, right? But at the same time, it makes so much sense because time is made up by humans because we needed to make sure our asses got to work on time, right? And so if you take away the time that humans have developed and generated so that we are limited and all that stuff, that's a different conversation. But if you take that away, then everything is going at the same time. It's kind of like when you're watching TV. I'm sure you've heard this before. You're watching one channel and all the other channels are going at the same time. So even though you know they're all going at the same time, you're not typically watching them all, right? Unless you have more than one TV going. So if you thought about, I have this computer screen going, this computer screen going, and so I may be focused on this one, but I can still see what's going on over here. That's kind of like what it's like to be psychic, is you have the ability to tune into several different frequencies at once. So me as a reader, when I'm reading someone, I'm picking up their past, which is why people will be like, yeah, that already happened to me, or their present, because it depends on what's going on. And they'll be like, yep, just happened to me today, or I'm about to go sign those loan papers or whatever. And then the future, here's the thing where it gets a little tricky with the future though. And the reason why I say that is because, again, You have free will. So if I'm reading you in your current timeline and frequency and energy, but you may all of a sudden get triggered by a past life, or you may get triggered by a lineage energy. And so you start to veer off into a different path. And so all of those channels that are going at the same time, that's why I say when I'm reading, if you continue on the path you're on, this is what's going to happen. But if you make this decision and this change over here, this is where things are going to start to flow differently for you because you just made a different fork in your road and now you get to go and do this other thing because people will be like, some of the things that you said, I'm still waiting for them to happen. Okay. Yep, that's totally normal, right? Because not everything that happens in the future that's being predicted is happening right now. It could be very, very, very soon. And sometimes a reader like me will feel it so strong. I think it's happening right now. And they'll be like, nope, I don't know what you're talking about. And then like a week later or something, they'll be like, now I know what you're talking about because they were continuing on the same path and the things started to unfold. But it's kind of like when you're watching the weather and what do? It's supposed to rain today, right? So you might take your umbrella and because you are prepared for it, you're now not going to get soaked because you had that umbrella. Now, had you not known that, you might have been soaked. So that's kind of what it is to be psychic and to when you're giving that information is, okay, I know that this could be an accident, but she told me to do this, or I'm choosing to ride it out to see how it goes, or I'm going to make those changes now so I don't have to deal with this accident. And or you might hear about the accident, but you were no longer a part of it now. So some things that happened to me when I was younger, because again, I have been awake all of my life. I've never shut down, is one of the biggies, which is one of my siblings, I had dreamt, because that's a psychic intuitive type gift, is I had dreamt that my brother was going to kill himself and that he would pass away. I have two siblings I grew up with, both are brothers. And at the time, the brother that I dreamt that was going to commit suicide actually was my other brother that committed suicide at the time. And so it was like intuitively, I knew something was going to happen. And I was just like, okay, it's going to happen. I'm getting myself ready. But then it was the other brother. So see how our intuition can also be like, we're showing you something is coming up into your realm, but it could be a little different than what you're expecting. Also, I'll give you another example. This beautiful woman, been with her partner for 50 some years. And when she was testing her co-partner at the time, because everyone was paired up with people they didn't know, and she said, have I been married once or twice? And the other individual said twice. And I immediately thought twice. And she goes, nope, only once. Same person. I've been with them since I was 16. And I was like, gosh, that doesn't feel right. And so then I sat down and I talked to her and I said, I got to be honest, I was feeling too also. And then we got to the point where she was like, we actually met when we were 16. We broke up because he broke my heart. And then we came back together. So technically, two great loves. So even though she wasn't married twice, I kept feeling two great loves. So even though it was the same person in her brain, it was like, I've been with the same person all my life. You actually broke it off because you were a different person here at 16. And then when you re-met, you were another person. And so were they. And so you had that second great love. And so see how being a psychic is never just black and white. It can be so many different things, which is why it's so important to speak to your spirit team so that they are talking to you in the way that makes it understandable for you. So, like for me, I'm a feeler, so I feel things. I might hear it, I might know it, I might see it in my brain. It just depends on what type of clear gift I'm going to use at that time. Because especially if the person that I'm reading or connecting in with or giving a message to is nonverbal, is an animal, is a skeptic, is an empath mirror, all of these pieces come in to play, which it can make being a psychic a little more difficult depending on the certain people that you are connecting in with. And can you be psychic with animals? Of course. That's why it's called animal communication. But because everything is energy, you're connecting into the energy and you're seeing their timeline and what's going on. So, gosh, I sure hope that made sense. I hope that sparked a little bit of thoughts in your brain on all the things about being a psychic, because that was really just a tip of the iceberg, but just enough to get you to think. Because again, everyone's guess of being a psychic is different. Because some people have all the clairs, some people only have a few of the clairs, some people have all of the knowing. It just depends on where you're at in your journey, because some people will just be like, I can only predict if you're going to have what your gender is for your child, or I only want to talk to humans, or I only want to talk to adults, or I only want to talk to, you know, it just depends on where you're comfortable at and where your barometer is of what you feel that you can predict. Because a lot of times when we ignore our guts, we kick ourselves. So tap into your intuition. Your psychic abilities are stronger than you realize because it's already part of you.